Welcome to today's episode, the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. It is Monday, September 29th, the time of the year where Halloween stores are popping up around the country, horror movies are getting overplayed, and Burger King is back on the menu with its $2 Halloween buckets.
I've never heard of that.
I couldn't tell you the last time I was in a Burger King. That's just a joke. But do you know what else is $2?
Nope.
Disney is increasing its rates again as of October 21st, right in time for Halloween. It's ad plan. So all those ads that I had to sit through while watching Marvel Zombies, it's going up to, I think, $11.99.
It feels like they just increased it.
No, that was Netflix. That was like any of the other services out there. Today we're talking about The Living Dead, a.k.a. Hulu. When is that going to die? I think 2026.
Yeah, I think like January 1st is when it's going to be.
Really?
Going away.
They're completely killing it on
At least that's what I heard. I might have heard that wrong.
They should have killed it off on Halloween, this upcoming Halloween, just like Shudder or whatever that previous version of Shudder was, right? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, when we were doing
one of those networks.
How much
went away.
thing, yeah.
Marvel Zombies is an animated television series created by Brian Andrews and Zeb Wells. It is a true spinoff of Marvel's What If. It's season 1, episode 5, episode What If Zombies. What If left a lot to be desired, in my opinion. It was pitched as a way for fans to see an entirely new set of events, a series where absolutely anything could happen, how it should have ended, but better. They had 50,000, I think we're up to like 58,000 Marvel comics. So they could have drawn upon anything, and yet they played it really safe. The animation looked a little cheap in CGI, again, in my opinion. Lots of paying homage to the MCU, and there were cheesy one-liners, stagnant characters. And you know what they needed?
The actual voices of the people?
No, not really. Like, even that I'm kind of past. But you know what they really needed was they needed a Mr. Beast. They needed clickbait. I know how stupid that sounds, but just look at the titles of the original, like, first season. You had, what if Captain Carter were the first Avenger?
Right.
What if she was? What if they gender swapped Captain America? So what? What if T'Challa became a Star-Lord? In other words, what if a hero became a double hero?
I remember one was like, what if Killmonger saved Tony Stark? And I agree. It's
that one is more interesting because it's like, all right, someone's saving someone. But what if Thor were an only child? That sounds like an SNL sketch.
Yeah, no, that's
what if
true.
Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands? That's actually one of the highest rated ones.
I know.
But it still sounds like so kind of lame.
A lot of the places that they explored, a lot of the realities and things, they just were not interesting enough, I think, to say as a series. That's why it only lasted, I think, around like 3 seasons.
But, well, no, 3 seasons is pretty good. It's more than most Disney Marvel series get. Marvel's Zombies, it speaks for itself. Zombies are much more exciting than a Captain America retread. What's different going into this series than going into the previous one was my expectations were in check. It's been years also, so I'm more open to revisiting some of these characters. In 2021, it had only been a couple years since Endgame.
Right.
I think the Spider-Man movie had either just come out or was coming out.
The No Way Home was coming out later that year.
Right, so it felt like all these characters were, like, I'd seen enough of them. Superhero fatigue almost. Now it's almost like nostalgia makes the heart grow fonder. A lot of these people or characters I haven't seen in years, so I'm almost happy when they reprise themselves versus before when I was upset when they didn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah. First off, who did you realize did not reprise their role? Because they got a lot of the main cast to appear.
Yeah, I was reading more or less who was showing up at the end. I know some of the big names obviously didn't, but because they're zombies, a lot of people didn't speak that much. So, like, we haven't even seen Mark Ruffalo back.
Right. Yes, yeah. But I meant more like Helmet Zemo, like people that were actually in it. The Civil War character.
Helmet Zemo, the bad guy from, I think, the 3rd or 2nd episode of the series, I didn't know what his real name was in the Marvel universe. I remember him from Civil War. I recognized him. He was one of the characters who I actually thought they kind of drew correctly.
Yeah.
But I didn't know his real name until I looked it up.
It was not Daniel Bruhl. They actually got Rama Voulery. Now, the thing about Rama Voulery is he voiced that character, but in X-Men 97.
Cool.
And then also Thor, that wasn't Chris Hemsworth, it was Greg Furman.
Now that, like, little line that he gets did sound like Chris Hemsworth, so it was kinda like the Rick and Morty casting where they got someone who sounded exactly like him rather than just someone famous.
And I know that Thor showed up in the original What If, like Chris Hemsworth voiced him, but I think here it was just like one line, so they were like, you know, we're not even probably gonna bother asking
You
him.
also had people like Mahershala Ali, right, showing up for Blade, was that him?
No, that was actually not him. That was Todd
But
Williams.
it was drawn to be
Yes,
him?
his likeness was used. The strange thing about it is Todd Williams replaced Mahershala Ali in Invincible. So
Oh,
he just keeps on
yeah.
replacing him in animation. Then you have Peter Parker,
Peter Porker?
obviously. Peter Parker, Hudson Thames, the guy from Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man that voiced him in the original.
Which I learned recently that he actually had been cast in that even when the What If series came out, even though that came out like 3 or 4 years
Right.
before the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man TV show
Yep,
was
2021
eventually
again.
released. Different animation styles still, right? Between that too.
Yeah, because this is definitely supposed to be more 3D Marvel Zombies, and with Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, that was kind of just straight out of like a comic book.
Right. So, like, this time I didn't care about the animation. I didn't care that they didn't get all the voices. And I also was happy that this was going to be like a 2.5 hour movie if you include the fifth episode, because then you have like 5 30-minute segments. And yes, there's a lot of commercials, but it's like the Justice League specials back in the day. It's like Batman Beyond movie. It felt like a kind of again, a nostalgic, like one off story.
It was supposed to be a movie. They were even thinking about doing a live action film back in like 2013, but then they didn't know how to.
2013.
Yes,
How does that even work?
Kevin Feige didn't know how to make it for the target demographic back then. So
Right.
then they decided, okay, and then years later, after the episode came out, Kevin Feige liked it so much they decided to try and make a movie. But then because of some stuff with Spider-Man and copyright and Sony, they were just like, you know what? Fine, we're gonna make it a TV show, split it into 4 parts. And when they asked the creators, Brian Andrews, why it was only 4 parts, he was as upfront as possible. He said time and money.
Okay, we'll get into that in a bit, but let's just do a recap. First, let's start with episode 5 of the What If series. The plot beats are that Dr. Hank Pym, who is always a thorn in everyone's side, at least in the Marvel What If series.
Michael Douglas, right?
Yes, Michael Douglas. But like he, in one episode, was just going off and killing off all the Avengers just for fun. Like that was his whole like What If series vibe. But then in this one, he is going back to try to save his wife in the quantum realm. And unfortunately, she's contracted a virus. Not just any virus, though. This is a zombie virus, and it infects across species. Humans, aliens, gods, everyone is susceptible to it. And so, side note, that would make a kind of interesting Honey, I Shrunk the Kids thing if they bring back the kid and the kid just has like a really strong hunger for rare meat or something like that. Yeah. Rick Moranis is going back into acting with Spaceballs too. So
So you're saying why not?
call him back. Yeah. After the outbreak, the Hulk, Spider-Man, the Wasp, Okoye, Happy, etc. They have a huge team, and they all follow the signal toward a zombie cure. At the end of that rainbow, they have a vision. I mean, they see Vision. Vision's there. He is able to make a cure. He has saved Ant-Man Scott Lang's head. Sort of like, I mean,
It's just Futurama style.
it is. It's 100% Futurama, and he doesn't have any control. Like, he has the cape,
Right.
Doctor Strange's cape, which allows him to move, but he doesn't have any control of said movement, I
Yeah,
wouldn't think.
because again, it's Doctor Strange's relic.
Right.
That was the the strangest.
So when
part.
he's fighting off the zombies and other scenes and stuff, he's not actually doing anything except rolling around in that thing. He doesn't necessarily have to be there, but don't tell him that.
They needed to have a reason to have Paul Rudd in
No,
the
it's great that
series.
Paul Rudd's there. Yeah. So his Vision is also covering up this very disturbing secret. He's kind of having a Dr. Freeze moment where he really wants to save his wife, Wanda. Also, I don't think he can kill her because she's just so powerful, but she has been turned. So he's also like the governor because, like the governor in
From The Walking
Dead,
Mhm.
he's kind of just feeding her. And he's making T'Challa into a Happy Meal. He's cut off almost like strips of his leg, most of his left or right leg. And when he hasn't still been feeding her for weeks, that didn't make much sense to me. So he has the body that he's been like cutting up and
Right.
he's still alive. And he just stopped feeding her because that was his one line. He was like, she hasn't eaten in weeks.
How
And so,
long can she go without eating? Did they ever say?
well, she's a super powerful being. I would think not very long. Wanda breaks out. She's hangry, and Vision sacrifices himself Spidey, Scott's Head, and T'Challa are able to escape by the skin of their teeth, and that's how the original series left it, right?
Right. Well, we also saw Thanos with all the
Yeah,
Infinity
there was a
Rings except
little
one.
bit of a cliffhanger there where, like, he just needed the last gemstone, and because Vision had sacrificed himself, might be able to get that.
Yeah.
So, Marvel Zombies picks up 5 years later. We are with Ironheart, Kate Bishop, and Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan. They are all roommates. They're surviving the post-apocalypse, looking like they're having a lot of fun. They locate a shrunken transmitter in a dead shield agent, right?
Yeah.
And they decide to take a road trip at that point. They say, we can get to this Ohioan center where we can use this transmitter, but we don't exactly know what it is.
Wait, so they were just hanging out and then they decided to go on like a superhero mission?
They weren't just hanging out, they were living their lives. They were surviving in a post-apocalyptic world. And when they got this new piece of technology, they were like, we have the ability to maybe save the entire planet. We only have like a 20% chance of success, but let's go ahead and do it anyway. So it's a girls' trip. Kamala Khan, things don't go well.
Yeah.
Kamala Khan ends up having to be saved by Blade Knight, a cross between Blade and Moon Knight, who I thought was Mahershala Ali, but apparently not.
Right. What did you think of Blade? Because this is the first time
I
that
liked it.
you've seen him. You like Blade?
Yeah,
in
I
this?
liked how they did his thing. Better than I think even Oscar Isaac's multiple personality Moon Knight.
Marvel said that they thought that they were going to be able to have a Blade movie out by the time that this was going to come out. Because again, has been planned since 2021. But because of all of the things that have set back that Blade movie, they just thought to themselves, you know what? Let's incorporate Moon Knight into his persona so
Right.
that we have an introduced character.
Don't hear what I'm not saying. Like, I don't know if this would adapt well into a actual movie, but like for the TV show, he was pretty epic. Yeah. So he saves her. They're on their way to Ohio, where they run into Black Widow's family. They determine that the transmitter is capable of broadcasting a signal to the Nova Corps, and I'm sure that we've talked about that the Nova Corps have been in the Marvel universe beforehand. But to me, I kind of blanked on them. They're the space police, I guess, and they just our main crew just need a ship to be able to get out into the atmosphere to signal them. But before they can like plan that out 100%, the zombies appear. And it turns out that they've been hive-minded. Over the last 5 years, Wanda has sort of like accrued the ability to turn them into an army. And Melina, the mom of the Black Widow family, she sacrifices herself so that the heroes can skedaddle.
Yeah, and I know that she was replaced as well. It's Rachel Weisz in the movie, and here it's Carrie Walgreen.
I'm sure it's explained why she's like so much younger. Like, I know that they're adopted. Florence Pugh and Black Widow were adopted, but like it's still weird that they're like so similar in age.
Yeah, because you never saw the Black Widow movie.
I never did. No, I will eventually. So episode 2 kicks off. We have Shang-Chi, Katie, his best friend, Aquafina. We have a goofier version of Randall Park's Jimmy Woo and Death Dealer, his best friend. They're Mad Maxing it through the desert, and they make their way to this safe haven at the same time that Kamala and her gang are appearing there. So, like, it's just a grouping of these heroes, and it turns out that safe haven is run by Helmut Zemo, the bad guy. I had only known him as bad. So when he turned up, and I think it was Wyatt Russell's character who was with him, the other Captain America
it was.
guy, that was a little like, oh, these guys are going to try to kill them, right?
I thought that when it came to Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they tried to change his character to good. But maybe
I haven't seen the full series to that either. But the thing about this series is you don't necessarily have to have seen much Marvel, but the more that you have, the better it is.
It kind of rewards you.
Absolutely. That's the perfect way of putting it. It rewards you for knowing more. He Helmut Zemo, begrudgingly allows them onto his big raft that's headed to New Asgard, which they're going to use because there's a spaceship there that they're going to take off and set the signal off. Unfortunately, Helmut Zemo turns out that he's still evil, and he serves the heroes up on a platter once they're in the water, pun intended, to Namor, the zombie king of Atlantis. We've seen him with his little flippy floppy. We didn't see those here, but like they were on his ink.
Yeah,
right?
But you're talking about the guy from Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Yes, Black Panther 2. Again, the heroes escape due to a sacrifice. This time it's Yelena who goes out in big style, and Alexei is very sad. Her dad is very sad.
I have to ask because it's just I always felt this way kind of with What If, and the same thing here with all the alternate universes, and the films are a little different because that takes place just in one universe. But doesn't it just seem like the characters, like especially when they sacrifice themselves, they seem like less, like, it doesn't really seem to hit me as hard because
Right.
it
Well,
just
that's the reason why we're following this specific universe most of the time is because that is the most, I think, where those characters live their fullest lives in most cases. And in these what if versions, it's like, okay, things can go sideways and people will die quicker and
yeah,
they
and
won't get the justice that they're deserved.
I agree that it's good that they stay in one universe, but I just feel like it's Marvel's Achilles heel, especially with the multiverse saga ever since Phase 4 and what's going to end with Phase
I'm happy
6.
that they don't have the same plot armor that they have in the because that's really what you're saying is that in the original universe that they're way harder to kill
Yeah.
and that this they're not. And I'm saying this one actually makes more sense to me. Episode 3, we get a little bit more understanding about what happened in the past. 5 years ago, Peter and Ant-Man, they were traveling off with T'Challa to save the world, and that's when they run into zombie Thanos, and we
Yes.
see the fight scene there, which was really cool.
This was my favorite segment, yeah.
Side note, though, what happened to T'Challa's leg? Because suddenly he's in his Black Panther costume and he doesn't look like he's limping. Like, seriously, he was being fed to Wanda. So did they have like some sort of prosthetic that they attached to him? Like, how did he and that leg suddenly just regrow?
When they were in the airplane in episode 5,
Right.
didn't he also have his leg there as well?
No way, because again, they cut it off.
Maybe it's just his suit, like something. I mean, they do have Spider-Man there. That's the descendant of Tony Stark. They might have been able to come up with some type of like
But
scientific
nothing
thing.
for Paul Rudd's head. Because he had the cape at that point, and he's just like, I'm good.
I don't know, how do you feel how they handled Black Panther? Because Marvel said that Chadwick Boseman, had he not died, definitely would have been in the series.
I think they handled it with grace. Like, that was the way to do it. He sacrifices himself to save the world and destroy Thanos.
Ryan Coogler, the director of the 2 Black Panther movies, helped with that segment.
Yeah, no, that was pretty cool. And then Peter and Ant-Man, to get out of that explosion zone, are saved by portals, which brings them to the mountains with this Minotaur dude who is who's waiting, I guess, to see what happens next. Kamala, we're jumping back 5 years into the future, has the device still. She is with Blade Knight, and Blade Knight's the one who actually convinces Valkyrie and New Asgard to let them into this banquet for the Feast of the Gods or whatever. And they plan to talk to Thor because they think, okay, Thor can help us out. And it turns out, though, that Wanda is a step ahead of them and that the feast is actually a Trojan horse, that all the food is just zombie parts. So all these Asgardians are going to be turned. Side note again, how have, after 5 years, or like, how have the Asgardians not gotten the memo about Wanda? It's
Right.
been 5 years.
I mean, yeah, she's like the most powerful of all of them.
They seem shocked when they say, you were infected? Like, really? They didn't know that? It's so
She
strange.
also looked, just from the animation, very menacingly, and I understand that as the audience, we're supposed to kind of already know.
You're not supposed to know that as an Asgardian.
But
like, you're just going to be a drunk god.
If this was real life, I feel like they would have been able to clock that immediately.
No. Her power is such that I'm not surprised that she's able to manipulate people. It's just the fact that no one knew it going in.
Come to think of it, I think that the first time we see her power in Avengers Age of Ultron is when she manipulates Thor. Into a place like that.
I know.
Yeah.
No. I did catch that. However, I don't even think Thor's being manipulated here. He's just out of it. Instead of being fat Thor because he screwed up Thanos' kill, he's instead just depressed Thor.
This is kind of like him at the beginning of Infinity War, where he's lost everything. I think
that's where he's fat Thor. And he's also gone to New Asgard again, but instead of gaming, he's instead just sitting on that seat.
At the beginning of Infinity War, like where he didn't have his eye and everything before you're talking about Endgame.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying they like combine things.
Yes.
But I thought that when he jumped down with Rocket and with Groot in that flashback with Thanos, that he had just gone through everything that he did.
Oh, you're right. But that was still Infinity War. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I thought he had already gone through those moments in Infinity War. So where are we in the episode? Wanda has infected the Asgardians. Alexei, Jimmy, and Death Eater unfortunately perish, and it takes Thor sacrificing himself once again to save Miss Marvel, Blade, Shang-Chi, Katie, and Valkyrie as they set a ship out to space. It's then that the Nova Corps reveal themselves as having already been there. They didn't need a signal. They've already quarantined this planet under the dome style. Marvel loves domes.
They do.
Yeah. And so it turns out the Nova Corps are not going to help them out. In fact, that's when the episode 4 finale has them trying to take down the ship, right?
Right.
They shoot the ship out of the sky. Everyone is plunging to their deaths, and then eagles
Eagles?
No, that's a Lord of the Rings
I was
reference.
gonna
It's an
say,
ex
yeah.
machina. Portals show up and save everybody. Again, side note, why now? They've had 5 years for these
Yes.
portals to come in and save any one of them. Like literally, that's when Peter and Ant-Man, they've just been hanging around in the mountains for 5
I had
years.
the same complaint. It's like, and that's kind of a complaint that Marvel has always had. Where have the heroes been during this time? Why does it
If they
always
had this
take them
super ability,
so long? 5 years? It's not like Thanos' snap where there weren't like where they were just like off and they were away.
they
They've been there.
I guess maybe it took them a while to track them, and maybe seeing the spaceship go up into space, that's when they clock them. But it's weird that they wouldn't have seen their journey up until then because they do seem like they're kind of all knowing. Spider Man and company explain everything that's happened up until now, why Wanda is thirsting for this power, even though she's a zombie. It seems like the Wakanda event, the thing where Thanos exploded and then Bruce Banner sacrificed himself to become Infinity Hulk. And so he's just hanging out
I
like,
love Infinity Hulk, by the way. Out of all the new characters they introduced, Blade included, I thought Infinity Hulk was like the coolest. And I know he's supposed to be kind of a villain, but
no, no,
still.
no, no. He's a cool guy. But he's not the Hulk, and he's not Bruce Banner. He's Infinity Hulk. And so let's just cut straight to the climax. To Plants vs Zombies. Infinity Hulk versus all the zombs. This is like a Game of Thrones battle when they're running at the wall. It's like Infinity Endgame.
This is the first animated show to be TVMA from Marvel.
They spliced Hank Pym in half. That killing of Ant-Man was the coolest like looking shot that I've seen, except for when Spider-Man started splicing off heads. Like it was brutal.
In the comic book, it's supposed to be one of the bleakest comic books like ever made, Marvel Zombies.
Yeah, that was pretty neat. And so like all my animation faux pas of the first series, like I can throw those away for now because all the action sequences, not even just this one, but all of them between Thor and Wanda, between the gods of where you had Captain Marvel versus one of the Eternals in the
Yeah.
first episode.
What a cool matchup, by the way.
Yeah, they just forever in time are fighting. It's the
Why
yin
couldn't
and
we
the
get
yang.
that in What If, you know?
Right, because they never had a chance to really elongate the stories for them to be able to do that. Despite the valiant effort, though, we all know where this is headed. Wanda's army wears down Hulk even after Kamala and her team arrive as backup. Instead of killing Kamala at that point, Wanda goes on the recruitment option, and she just tries to seduce her into like just joining her side. Why is she doing
Mephisto.
this?
I think that this was directly supposed to be from Ironheart. In the finale, Riri makes a deal with Mephisto, and I think that this was supposed to be like the same exact thing. In fact, I think they even have to shake hands in that as well. And I think they were supposed to show that Miss Marvel, I think was just, yeah, it was like her only option.
It's the interesting thing because it's not only that. If you look at the Multiverse of Madness,
Yeah.
Very similar situation with Wanda where she goes insane looking for her kids. I'm happy they never bring up her kids in this show. But like, yeah, she has
No song
a
about ice
better
cream.
motive here. You never have to sell me on how powerful she is. She could for sure take down all the Avengers if she does what she's doing here. But giving her a motive that's proper, that works, making her a zombie is perfect. But like America Chavez made a much more compelling "I need your help" character because she had the ability to jump multiverses. She seemed super like that's one of the most powerful abilities that I would think anybody has in the character. But Kamala, like I don't see how her ability, Miss Marvel, like what does she do that's all that special? Why did Wanda need her help?
I think she
Is she
probably
using
just,
her as a battery?
yeah, probably. I think that's supposed to be kind of like an assistant thing.
I
The
feel
devil's
like
assistant.
anyone could have played that part though. Why? Maybe because she's the youngest and she's like, I can manipulate her the most. But throughout this whole series, she was acted like she was the chosen one. And I don't understand why. So maybe I have to go back to the Miss Marvel series to understand that a little bit more. Instead of dying, Kamala decides to take the other option and she decides to live out a fantasy dream. She doesn't necessarily know this is what she's doing, but she does kind of like give up on this world,
Right.
doom the whole world, and she wakes up and suddenly she's there with her friends again and she's living this way. But then it's quickly revealed that the battle is still going on. She's just kind of like looped out of it.
Well, you see Ironheart, right, in different flashes.
So like we never saw her die in the first episode, so clearly Riri did not, and so that's why she's showing up here, and she's going to be the one who jars her out of it. Here's my pros for the series. Do you have your own?
Yeah. I do.
Okay. So in no particular order, we get so many cameos, more than you'd see outside of an Avengers movie. I just wish they looked a little bit more like themselves.
Who do you think looked the most different?
Valkyrie.
Valkyrie?
Tessa Thompson looked completely different to the point where I thought maybe they were sticking her voice on the other like Asgardian or something like that.
Yeah.
It was confusing to me. And then they improved the humor, I think, from the original series. Blade Knight showing his true form to Valkyrie, but no one else being able to see it. A lot of people's deaths, Captain America's zombie death, where what Alexei like jumps on him, and it's only half his body that's fighting because we already saw that
Yeah.
in the first episode, Bucky had killed or sliced
Slice him
Captain
in
America
half
in
with a
half.
shield,
And
yeah.
then Hank Pym's zombie death that we just talked about, those were all hilarious. Even the Mad Max thing I was okay with, even though it was so goofy. And then the story is predictable as far as where we know it's going. However, the means to get there I thought was very clever. And then the action fights, we already went into the Ohio God battle, Thor vs. Wanda, Thanos battle, Infinity Hulk, Spider-Man whipping off those heads. Wanda being a powerhouse, always love to see that. She is a formidable enemy. If she was ever a good guy, it would almost like it was one thing when she was growing up and she didn't have her full like extent of her abilities.
Right.
But now that she does, it's almost too unfair to the good guys to
And
have her.
controlled,
So they
yeah.
have to have her like eliminated for some way. She's like a Superman in herself. And then your favorite death.
My favorite death has to be T'Challa's. I just feel like, say what you want about Marvel, because they definitely have misstep, but whenever they try to give a tribute to Chadwick Boseman, I feel like they've done it well. Like, I wasn't even a huge fan of Black Panther 2, but my favorite part of that was the beginning scene where they pay tribute to him.
I agree.
And I agree with you. Wanda, you never have to, I'm never going to be mad at Marvel for making Wanda the villain, because like you said, she's just so powerful. Limiting it to one world as well, even though, it's an alternate universe, I was happy with
I
it.
also like how the zombies are a little smart, like Thanos figuring out that he can do like almost more than the other Thanos could do, because maybe the other Thanos knew that he could bring the dead back to life, but he was like, even I wouldn't go that far.
I was just about to mention Thanos. I was glad that they showed us that, because that was the most interesting cliffhanger I feel like What If had with the Thanos zombie, and I was glad that it didn't take over the rest of the series, because they could have easily made him the villain,
Right.
but they were able to show us what happened in the
And
beginning
still
of the
Thor tripping himself for not aiming for the head.
right. Still getting in his body. Yeah, no, I agree. So what would you give the series overall?
Well, I'm not done with, so like my biggest pro, the one that I wanted to give this show and that I was going to give it the most props for, I have to revoke it.
Revoke it.
Yeah, because I was going to say that this show breaks the norm, that 8 out of 10 shows have the same flaw. Black Rabbit, Lowdown, Task, all these new series that we gave positive reviews, they're complicated. You don't necessarily know who the villain is. You're expected to appreciate the wild ride, the surreal notes, and the depth of human psyche. You look at things even like The Walking Dead, where at first it seems like you know where the journey is headed, and then somewhere along the line it becomes clear that they've sold out and that they're just cashing in on a brand, so there's no end in sight. Even simple formulaic procedural television, it works in a circle so that you go season upon season upon season without ever actually having an ending. But people, humans, they crave beginnings and they also want endings. This show would have gotten such props from me had they just concluded the story. They got 85% of the way there, and then they said, fuck it, sell out, let's hint at a season 2. It's so sad because it takes away that whole point I said about it being like the Justice League earlier. I know that was a backdoor pilot, but like show the completion of one element. People want to stop being just like, what's the word? Where shoelaced along or whatever. They build themselves as a miniseries.
Yeah.
This is called a miniseries, and they just meant it was like small. They didn't mean it was all encompassing.
It hasn't been renewed for season 2. They also teased Bucky Barnes was going to make a return, but I understand what you're saying. It seems to be
How great would it have been if they had stopped it? Like, I would have just been so satisfied with that ending, even if it was the most simple terms of it. We'd already seen so much action. It was a cool journey to be led through. Just end it. You can always make a new zombies thing, but like at least anybody going back to the first season, it would make it rewatchable.
Right.
Now it's like everybody knows, oh, that's just part of it. You know?
I don't think we want to be kind of gain a season 2 because it's just going to follow Miss Marvel as she's trying to like break out. Who knows how long that's going to be.
Right. I don't want to make it like they could have made. You said that there was a budgetary constraint.
Yes.
But if they really wanted to extend this a little longer, just make it 6 episodes. You
right.
know? Like,
Yeah.
they could have ended it in that. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm discounting that. My main gripe is that they didn't finish in 4 episodes. But the way that they made that cliffhanger the fact that we've seen it so many times, it felt like such a cop out. Let's stick the main character into where they in the last second give up all their morals and they just are living life perfectly in this other world when clearly that they're going to have to make that journey back. Why do that? We already know she's a good person. She's going to turn around. So why are you wasting our time?
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
fair.
That's my biggest thing. I have some other little tiny cons, but they're not nearly as big as that one. There's some plot holes, like what makes her so special. We kind of talked about that. There were a lot of strange sacrifices. Shang-Chi's dad, we see him give up his rings to
Right.
save his son's arm, but later on we see his son using the rings pretty consistently in battle. It doesn't seem like it makes his arm any worse.
That
So
was my question, because yeah, they keep on, like, flinging off his arm, but the whole
right.
entire point was that it stopped the infection.
Like, why couldn't he have given half the rings to his son and then, like, escaped from there, and then he could have it just seemed like they went straight to the worst case scenario. Vision did the same thing in the first episode. He had found a cure in the first episode being the 5th episode,
Right.
but he had found a cure to zombieism. He had fixed Paul Rudd, and he thought in that moment that the best thing to do was to kill himself, making it impossible for anybody else to be cured. Imagine all the other heroes he could have tried to have saved if he had escaped from Wanda there, but he made it seem like the only way that they were going to escape was if he killed himself. That didn't make sense to me. And then you also have a ton of people who are also dying, Thor, Yelena, Melina, all to buy time. I'm not saying that I would have enjoyed some plot armor on that, but it did feel like sometimes they were just doing it because they didn't want to live anymore.
Yeah.
If you had to compare this to anything else, what would you?
I honestly, I would just say, "What if?" Like, it's the overriding factor. It looks too much like it. That's why I have it. What about you?
I would say The Batman Who Laughs, where you get like kind of like a side journey that's really engaging for the most part, and dark.
I could
Um,
say you could throw Star Wars Rogue One in there, because no spoilers, but in terms of, like, the amount of fatalities,
well, that's a prequel. That still
yeah,
happened though. Like all
but
that's in the. But
yeah,
yeah,
that's
no,
what
I
I'm
understand what
saying.
you're saying. For sure. And then Scott's head. That I think they didn't think that one out originally when they were doing. It. Didn't think, oh, we have to make this actually canon. But how is he living once Vision died? Like, what's keeping his head alive?
Yeah, did they ever explain that?
He's literally like that's amazing technology, but he's not a robot. He's literally just a floating head that's not getting nutrients. That's not they're not showing any of the thing. It's kind of like with Spider-Man and how he always has an endless amount of string
Mhm.
and that
Web.
string will be super powerful.
Yeah.
Like that despite the fact that he made it in a lab. All right. Well, that's the end of my complaints. I give overall this show a 6.5 out of 10. I still enjoyed it despite the upsetting ending.
I would give it a 6 out of 10. It has a 7.3 on IMDb with around 5,000 reviews, 64% on Rotten Tomatoes, 79% audience score. Collider gave it a 6 out of 10, and they praised Kamala's character and action sequences, but also felt like the series was rushed. Like you were saying, they said, why not give it like 2 or 3 more episodes? And it doesn't give the audience much time to breathe. But then you go,
I like that part of it, and had they just ended it at the end, I would have been like, "Wow!" They just wanted to. They gave me everything I want. They threw in a ton of characters. They showed me some crazy action. It was a Marvel Zombies epic.
well, I had a game here. This is about the original Marvel Zombies comic book that came out in December 2005 to April 2006. I wanted to see if you could guess what the lie was. The first one is the comic was created by Robert Kirkman, the creator of The Walking Dead. The second one is the comic introduced Headpool, a version of Deadpool that is just a head with a propeller beanie. The third one is the series was spun out of events from Ultimate Fantastic Four comic book. And the last one is the first print of Marvel Zombies issue number 1 featured Spider-Man's mask, half torn, revealing his zombie face. Marvel pulled it as they felt it was too similar to AC/DC's Black and Black promo art.
Wow. The last one's very like in depth. I have seen the Deadpool thing, so unless you're like combining two things, then. But I would probably just say the Kirkman one. It feels like such a trap. I will say it's the Kirkman one.
No, it actually was created by Kirkman, Mark
Interesting. So
Miller.
he had already started by then, plenty of years earlier, the Walking Dead, and they were just like, we want the same dude.
Yeah, and they got Mark Millar, who did Kick-Ass and
Mark Miller?
Kingsman.
Yeah.
Yeah, he created it. And again, it's known as being one of the bleakest Marvel Limited series. Headpool was in Deadpool and Wolverine. In fact, Zeb Wells, the person who created this, co-creator, he actually wrote Deadpool and Wolverine. It was voiced by Nathan Fillion, even though he had
So
one
you
line.
think that's why they're doing the Paul Rudd thing?
Mm-hmm.
But like Deadpool's whole vibe is that it's really hard to kill him. Scott is a human.
Well,
He's just a normal human.
it's also completely different as to why the zombie apocalypse started. It was spun out from the Ultimate Fantastic Four, where zombie Reed Richards tricks his counterpart into opening a portal to a zombie universe.
Yeah, that's kind of like Multiverse of Madness. Remember? Well, he keeps on opening two different portals of evil. Like there's Doctor Strange's, but some of them are evil, and then he has to turn into a zombie to fight back against Wanda.
Really quick, I guess
What was the answer?
Oh, no, the answer, sorry, was the AC/DC cover art.
So
Nothing like
it
that,
was
bro.
like the complicated one. I said that was really in depth for a reason. Yeah.
The Phase 6, I guess we wanted to talk about the future of Marvel for a quick second, get your thoughts on it. This is this is significantly shorter than the Infinity Saga. The Multiverse Saga has been like 6 years. Infinity Saga was 11 years. But for Phase 6, it has the shortest amount of films, 4, and it has the shortest as of right now of the TV shows when talking about the Multiverse Saga, 6, this being one of them. But I was wondering, did you know that Evangeline Lilly and Michael Douglas have retired from acting?
Yeah, I haven't seen him in much since the pandemic. Michael Douglas is more of a surprise to me because he was in the Quantum Mania, and so well, I guess they were both in the Quantum Mania.
Yeah,
Weren't they?
but like even in Evangeline Lilly's filmography, that movie is said like final role before retiring. It just makes it seem like Ant-Man universe, especially with Avengers around the corner. It seems like that has to be done.
When they do the Doomsday thing, I assume her name just wasn't on the back seat of those.
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I think I would have recognized that too. Another tiny plot hole was that in the 5th episode, they knew she was going to be turning. Evangeline Lilly's character was going to be turning into a zombie, and yet they kept her in that suit. And then later on, we see her in that suit as a zombie. It's like, why didn't you remove the suit?
In the finale, yeah, she's huge.
Like she walks them across that zombie field, and then she puts them over the thing. But at that point, I would have I think taken the suit off in like the limited amount of time that she has left and just like thrown it or something like to get it. That's such a tiny quibble. I would have given this show a 7 out of 10 or higher if it had just concluded, if it had a nice ending. But thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.